Hey, my name is Justin, and I'm with the Young Pastors Podcast, and we've been going over some things that can help develop momentum. And I realized that within the first two episodes of this, that I was really only communicating and leaning in the direction of really only one position in ministry. So what I thought I would do is through each of these, I would start talking about different ways in which your ministry can include these things. So I'm going to address the ones that I've spent the most time in, which is children and youth, and even being a lead pastor where I'm currently at. And so I'm going to talk about the specific thing that we're going to talk about today. I'm going to address it in those three areas because I want to be able to communicate to young pastors as a whole. And it hit me the other day that I'm probably not doing a great job with that because I'm only communicating to pastors who are in my role, who have been doing ministry for a while. So anyway, the topic that we're going to talk about today, which I'm really excited about, is this: get stuff on the calendar. Get some stuff on the calendar. This is a great way to develop momentum. I think sometimes what we do as the church when it comes to our calendars is we make families compete with the church. The day where the day and time where families just all they do is church and show up at church, man, those days are gone. Families are involved in a lot, and frankly, I don't mind that. And what I mean by that is that I think there should be a balance. Because your kids will, I tell parents all the time, your kids will value what you value. And so if you show that you value athletics, if you value school, if you value friends, if you value all these things more than the church, your kids will eventually see that. And generally speaking, as someone who was a youth pastor for a long time, it used to frustrate me that parents want things for their kids that they generally would not want for themselves. And it was always frustrating because the kid would get around 13, 14, 15 years old, and they're like, I don't want to go to Wednesday night. I don't want to go to church. I don't want to hang out at student ministry. I don't want to do any of those things. And a lot of that has to do with the standard that we put in place. A lot of that has to do with showing our kids what we truly value. And so your kids will eventually value what you value. I tell that to parents all the time. But I also think it's important for the church to be in the community and not always isolated from it. And so that being the case, we as a church, we want to think about ways to go along with the rhythm of the school calendar more so than competing with it. Now, saying that, there are not always going to be perfect times. Sometimes you just need to plan stuff. Sometimes you just need to get things on the calendar because parents' calendars fill up fast. And it's best to do this a year in advance. Who's going to own the event and how long of a promotion time you are going to allow. You can't say you're going to do something in 2 weeks. It'll never happen. Nobody will show. It's going to fall apart. It's going to be a mess. 4 to 6 weeks is a good starting point to start promoting something and getting in front of people, because when you start announcing it, they don't hear it. They don't hear it at all. By the time we're exhausted of saying it, they're finally hearing it. What we did, and I wish we would have done this earlier, but it's been very helpful with our communication because we get so busy that we're like, oh man, that's next week. That just snuck up on us. We had somebody who's just administrative, extremely administrative, and they came in and they go, you know what? So this stuff doesn't get carried away. So, and it sneak up on you. Why don't we create a chart? And on that chart, we've listed, what the event is, what time it will, or what's the date, what time it will be. We've added a category to who's going to own that event. The last two boxes are when are we going to start promoting this, the date we're going to start promoting this, and then the last box is what avenues are we going to promote this? Are we going to promote this from the stage? Are we going to promote this from the bulletin? Are we going to do a video? Are we going to promote? Are we going to put it on social media? Is it going to be on the screen? Is that are these the only way? Do we need to, is it going to be big enough to where we need to go get on the news? Like, what ways are we going to communicate these? And following along with this chart and talking about it weekly helps to make sure that we are following along in our calendar. So whether you're in student ministry, whether you're in children's ministry, whether you are in adult ministry, you need a calendar. You need one calendar for the church as a whole, but each area of ministry also needs to develop their calendar as well. And you need to make sure that you are having meetings where you are communicating collectively as a whole what's going on in the church, because what ends up happening is if y'all aren't communicating, you'll plan two big things on one day and now you're competing with each other. So you need to pay attention to where things fall on the calendar. You don't need to compete with culture. You need to make sure that all of your ministries align. So that's what I got for you today. I tell you, my hope is that when it comes to developing momentum in your church, whether it's student ministry, children's ministry, adult ministry, you got to have a calendar. So, man, I hope that you guys enjoyed this. If you want to get a hold of me or you have any suggestions or anything that you think people need to know and what's worked for you in your ministry, man, I'd love to interview you on the podcast. I'd love to talk with you about it. So you can get a hold of me at jwdaniel85@gmail.com. All right, thanks for listening to the Young Pastors Podcast.